What up, Wizards? It's Dev, and Igby's down here, and I got the chicken next to me. We like magic. We're from that place down there. But hey, we got some spoilers today from Crimson Vow. Not anywhere else, just Crimson Vow cards, in case you were wondering. And we've got, actually, a bunch of lower rarity stuff today, but that doesn't mean that it's bad. Now, sure, there were some draft and limited playables and all that. We'll go over that first. But a lot of the really juicy stuff today was actually, like, at uncommon. I love days like this, where we get a bunch of, like, playable role players, and sometimes cards that are way beyond even just role players, that we know we're going to be able to pick up for cheap. So, cool day today. Let's start going over it. Let's start things off today with Sanctify. This is a disenchanted sorcery speed, but to make up for that, you gain 3 life. Okay, that's what the card does. So we'll look at Belligerent Guest, which is me, pretty much anywhere I go. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 3/2 Vampire Trample. And when it deals combat damage to a player, you get a blood token. The trample feels a little bit random on this, like, vampires don't usually trample. But I guess, like, it gets you more blood tokens in combat. And if your limited deck is really designed around or cares about blood tokens in any way, then I guess you might play this if you don't get a better 3-drop. But we'll look at Runebound Wolf next, which is actually kind of an interesting card when you really get into the nitty gritty of what this thing can do, but it's all just like, you know, jank dreams. This is 2 mana, 1 and a red for a 2/2 wolf, and you can pay 3 and a red and tap it to have it deal damage equal to the number of wolves and werewolves you control to target opponents. So, I mean, obviously, I'm thinking this could be like a one of maybe in Gruul Werewolves, but even then, I'm not too sure about that. The activation cost is like ridiculous, but there's going to be some turns where you really don't want to cast a spell. You just want to flip it to nighttime and not cast anything. So this will give you an interesting activated ability, if nothing else, to like deal 3 or 4 to your opponent, and that's not bad. That's not terrible, but I can't see this being more than a 1 or 2 of. What I'm really interested in doing, like on a stream sometime, because this is definitely not actually a viable thing to do, is this plus like Maskwood Nexus. You know, like make a bunch of tokens somehow, and maybe Pylath is a way to do it. Make tokens for each of your lands. And then hit with this for like 8. It's possible. Or you could like Ghoulcaller's Harvest in the right deck and Jund Ghoulcaller's Harvest. Gives you a chance to play things that can give your ghouls haste, your zombies haste when you harvest. That's an idea. You might want to be in red anyway, and if you are in red, you have this card along with, again, Maskwood Nexus to turn all of your creatures into wolves and then hit for like 12. It could happen, but this is all just memes. The card is probably not actually very good. So let's look at Screaming Swarm. Again, a lot of alliteration in this set. This is 6 mana, 5 and a blue for a 4/4 bird horror with flying. And whenever you attack with 1 or more creatures, target player mills that many cards. So if you attack with 3 creatures, they mill 3 cards, so forth. You can also pay 2 and a blue to put Swarm from your graveyard into your library second from the top. So this is actually probably decent limited. Like, just forget the mill text. It's there. I guess it's there, but in any case, this is just a 6 mana 4/4 flyer that keeps coming back, and like that's solid and limited no matter what, but nowhere outside of that format. So up next is Bramble Worm, another card that interests me more than it should. This is 7 mana, 6 and a green for a 7/6 worm with reach and trample, and when it ETBs, you gain 5 life. But you can also pay 2 and a green and exile it from your yard to gain 5 life. This is kind of neat in like a budget reanimator deck, or maybe as a one of in a reanimator list. I don't think it's any better than like Bookworm, but I guess it will be in like really marginal cases where you need to do this or you'll die. So, you know, with Bookworm, it kind of has the ability of the last creature we looked at. You know, put it back into your library. This doesn't have that ability, but it gains more life than a Bookworm. It's an interesting reanimation target as kind of a safety valve so you won't die to aggro and suddenly you have a 7/6. Or if you can't reanimate it, you can still gain the 5. I don't know, like, I like stuff like this, and even though it probably never actually sees any standard play, there are formats where this has, like, the bleakest hope. The smallest chance of being like a one-of toolbox sideboard card or something. So I kind of like it. So next we'll look at Alluring Suitor. There's so many uncommons that I like today, and I can't necessarily justify, but Suitor looks pretty decent. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a 2/3 vamp, and when you attack with exactly 2 creatures, transform it. It transforms into Deadly Dancer. I love the flavor of this card. This is a 3/3 vamp with trample again, a vamp with tramp, a tramp vamp, and when it transforms into Deadly Dancer, I'm sorry, I couldn't help laughing at my own joke there. I didn't plan it. But anyway, you add 2 red to your pool when it transforms. Until end of turn, you don't lose the mana as steps and phases in. And you can pay 2 red, that's convenient, to have tap Deadly Dancer and another target creature get +1/+0 till end of turn. So this is neat in a few ways. You really want to be able to attack with 2 creatures the turn that you play this, hopefully on turn 3. So you have to go 1-drop, 2-drop, they don't die. They survive to combat on turn 3 and they get in. That's actually a lot to ask in today's standards. And to have like a profitable attack with both your 1 and 2-drop on turn 3, like you really are asking for a lot. But in this case, you get to transform it the turn you play it on turn 3 on curve, and then possibly either play a 2-drop on your second main phase or maybe play a Dragon's Fire. You know, an instant speed removal spell or something to take out a blocker before the declare blocker step. So that's kind of cool. Or you can just go ahead and dump the 2 red mana into this thing's activated ability, which is also kind of cool because it gives one of your creatures a boost. But if you untap with this and it's transformed, then it actually becomes kind of like the 2-drop goblin, like goblin, what is it, Battle Cry Goblin or something like that? Like it kind of sort of becomes almost one of those in that like you can just drop 2 mana into it and start pumping stuff to the moon. Like, you know, you can even spread the love and have it dance with like 2 creatures in 1 combat step. So I don't know. I don't think it's better than like a Reckless Stormseeker, which is sort of a comparable creature in a lot of ways. I wish it could give itself haste or something like that, but it can't. One way or the other, though, I do like the trample combined with a pump ability. I like the mana sink of a pump ability. I like that it's not too hard to flip this over, and sometimes it'll flip over the turn it comes into play, whether you play it on curve or not. I like that it adds mana when it transforms. That's always good. Like, there's a sweet little card right here that I kind of like more than I should. Maybe it's the flavor. Maybe I can't get over how much I like the flavor. All I'm saying is don't put this card in a corner of your mind and forget about it. Nobody puts this card in a corner. It might actually be pretty good. Does anybody even get that reference? It's the year 2021. But anyway, let's look at Voltaic Visionary, another alliterative card, and another sweet little red creature here. This is 1 and a red for a 3/1 human wizard, and you can tap it and have it deal 2 damage to you. Ouch, bud. But for that toll, you exile the top card of your library. You can play that card this turn. Activate only whenever you could cast a sorcery. Now, when you play a card exiled with Visionary, you transform Visionary into Voltaic Berserker. Now, this is a 4/3 human Berserker that can't block, and that's all it does. But it's like a 2-mana 4/3. You know, a 2-mana 4/3 is not too bad, but you do have to wait until like turn 4 to attack with this when you play it on curve, so it's not as good as it might look. But you tap it on turn 3, you play it on turn 2, you tap it on turn 3, and then you might be able to play a land from the top of your library. That's your land drop for the turn. Or maybe you just get like a 2-drop creature and you play that, right? So or a 3-drop creature, right, and you play that. So I think this might actually be okay. The stat line isn't terrible. The creature types aren't terrible either. You know, at least it's got a party type. It's got, you know, as far as the class goes, the job, the occupation slot counts for party. And human is maybe not in this color combination, but like humans is a relevant creature type nowadays. So I don't know. Not the worst stats in the world. Can trade with like, you know, a pack leader or something on turn 2 if that's what you want it to do. But it can also get you a form of card advantage. You drop it in the late game, it's not entirely dead. It at least gets you the 1 card. So I don't know. I don't hate this card at all, but I'm still not sure that it's like the savior mono red needs to be good. So let's look at Into the Night. A lot of red in this part of the video. This is 4 mana, 3 and a red for a sorcery. It becomes night. Nice. Discard any number of cards and draw that many cards +1. So sometimes you might just want one or the other effect on this card, but it gives you both. Problem is it's a 4 mana card at sorcery speed, which is booty. I'm pretty sure it's probably not a super playable card. We already have a thing that makes it become night. It only costs 2 mana and also does other things for your wolves, and like nobody really plays that. Even in the Gruul Werewolves list, you don't see much of it. Sometimes you see it 2 of, but still. I don't love this card. It is a wheel effect, and those are sometimes valuable for this reason or that, but we've already got stuff like Valakut Awakening. The format sees no play. And so I don't know about this, but you really can't undercut a card that just makes it become night and also other things. So maybe, but again, this is one of those where I kind of doubt it. So let's look at Weaver of Blossoms. This is 3 mana, 2 and a green for a 2/3 human werewolf, and it taps for any color, but when it transforms, because it's Devo, but when it transforms and it's night, it becomes a 3/4 that taps for 2 mana of any color, which is actually kind of neat. It goes with the last card we just saw, right? Like, it becomes night, you can immediately tap this for 2 mana and pay yourself back. I wish I liked this card more because it taps for 2 of any color, but making it night is hard. You just can't, you can't count on it. So I guess we'll move on, but what's next, you may ask? I guess we'll do Parasitic Grasp. This card actually looks pretty good to me. We're getting into the decent uncommons. This is 1 and a black for an instant. You can cleave it for 1 and 2 black, though. Now, Parasitic Grasp deals 3 damage to target human creature, and you gain 3 life. But if you pay the cleave cost, it's just 3 damage to a creature, and you gain 3. At instant speed, so, like, it's not the worst thing in the world, but there might be just better removal spells, especially in mono black or just black X. There might be better removal spells, so I'm not sure, but I could see it. I could see this in the main deck as like a 1 or 2 of. Kind of makes up for having to cast Infernal Grasp a couple of times in a game, in some games. So, you know, I guess I'll take it in some games. And, you know, you can run this in the main deck and sometimes pay 3 mana for it and not feel great, but it'll be all right. But sometimes it's only going to cost you 2 mana and like kills Luminarch Aspirant, puts you up 3 life, and you'll feel really good about that. It kills Elite Spellbinder, puts you up 3 life. Brutal Cathar, give you a creature back, put you up 3 life. Like, all this is going to feel great against mono white. So, like, maybe kill Prosperous Innkeeper game 3. Like, you know, I'll take it for just 2 mana, and it's going to be really good against mono white. That 3 life is going to matter. So, I think the card is actually playable as a 1 or 2 of, especially in like best of 1 main decks. It's especially since you're going to be coming up against a lot of mono white in that format. So yeah, sure. But also we got Hero's Downfall. I'm just slip that in real quick. A nice little reprint here, right? It's downgraded to uncommon. Has Hero's Downfall really fallen so far? I guess so. The card just doesn't look as impressive as it used to, but 3 mana instant speed, creature planeswalker, still a good deal, still better than murder, strictly better than murder, and that's a playable Magic card. So yet another like maybe 1 or 2 of removal spell in the environment. Just Hero's Downfall's back. We've been asking for it for so long, and now it's back, and we're like, okay, maybe. I guess we'll play this. We can play this, right? It's fine. And it is. So, hey, welcome back, bud. And welcome back, Mulch, too. Mulch, we got a reprint of this, too. We already had it on Ren and 7's +1, but now we can just play Mulch for 2 mana, and I love it. I've always loved Mulch. This is an amazing milkshake. Brings boys to the yard and make sure you hit your land drops. Like, let's go. For only 2 mana, this is a pretty decent 2-drop, although I think I'd rather play Lurch, the new 2 mana black creature that like mills 3 when he comes into play and then gets creature back when he dies. Like, I think I'd rather play that than Mulch, but Porque no los dos in some decks, right? So I guess up next, let's look at Ancient Spruce. I don't know if that's the right translation, but I do like the name. This is 4 mana, 2, a black, and a green for a 1/4 tree folk. Each creature you control with toughness greater than its power deals combat damage equal to its toughness instead of its power. So, and this has a pretty big butt, right? We'll call it Spruce Spruce. Does anybody get that reference? Does anybody remember Bruce Bruce? But anyway, I'm old, I guess. But it's cool to have like this effect. You know, we've seen this effect on multiple cards in the last like 5 years, and I love that they're printing this more often. And you basically get a 4 mana 4/4 that also makes like, I don't know, like that new 1 mana 0/4 thing, Concealed Curtains. Like it makes it a 4/4 for 1. Like there's some cool things you can do with this, but these decks always turn out fairly janky. I don't see this one being any different, but that's not going to keep me from playing it. I love these effects. Here's another cool card that I'm not actually sure is great, but I think might be slyly good, but I love it one way or the other. This is Boarded Windows, another really good card in terms of flavor, but I like the function too. This is 3 mana for an artifact. Creatures attacking you get -1/-0. At the beginning of each end step, if you took 4 or more damage this turn, I'm sure that's if you lost 4 or more life this turn. Exile Boarded Windows. So this, again, the flavor is great. Like, eventually they break through the boards and they get you. That's great. But this actually isn't so terrible against, you know, aggro decks and stuff. I am always looking for interesting cards for mono colorless. I love artifact decks. I love mono colorless decks that, you know, play either 0 or very, very few cards that actually have a color to them. And so this is neat. This isn't a wrath. This isn't removal, but it's kind of like Redain, right? Like the shield of the worthy, the other side of Redain. And it probably combos pretty well with that card. You know, if you go turn 3 this and a turn 4 shield, then like opponent's going to have a hard time dealing damage to you some of the time. So that could be a really annoying combo, and it's on curve. I don't know. I like this. It's going to keep you from taking some number of damage for at least one, if not multiple turns. So, I don't know. This is a card I like way more than I should, and you'll probably see it in some stream deck or another down the line when we go to make mono colorless, because it's an interesting 3-drop. But let's look at Thirst for Discovery, y'all. This is 3 mana, 2 and a blue for an instant, draw 3, then discard 2, unless you discard a basic land card. So close. Why is the word basic on this? In the decks that play Thirst for X or Y cards, they often have more of the card that they're thirsting for than you will for this, because most decks don't play a ton of basic lands right now. If you have to discard 2 cards, you'll let go of a Reanimator piece, and maybe you'll let go of a Disturb creature or a flashback spell, right? So even if you don't have the basic to discard, there's ways to make this still upsidey, but, 3 cards for 3 mana at instant speed is always going to be worth whatever price you have to pay for it, and that makes this card pretty decent no matter what trash I talk about it. If you don't have the basic, it's probably still fine. But if you do have the basic, it's very good. The problem with, one last thing, the problem with a lot of these Thirst cards is that, I don't want to discard an artifact. I need that, I don't want to discard, an instant or sorcery. I need that. That's the card I'm looking for. With this, there's a lot of times you don't really need a basic land, so you don't mind discarding it, right? A lot of times you're going to discard lands to these effects anyway, so if you do get a basic, good on you. There's a lot, more upside to discarding a basic than there is an actual card. So, I like the card for that reason, but you do have to play some number of basics in your deck to pop this off. So maybe mono blue. Are we doing that? Mono blue, draw 3. Could work. I like it. Now, I promise that we're almost done with the uncommons today, but I do have a couple more to look at, starting with Honeymoon Hearse, Alliteration, and again, flavor. On point. They would have a hearse. That's hilarious. This is 3 mana. 2 and a red for a 5/5 vehicle with trample. So much trample today. Tap 2 untapped creatures you control to have hearse become an artifact creature. So crew, tap 2 creatures. Which again, adorable flavor. I can't wait to play this on 3 and then play Esika's Chariot on 4 and then get my 2 kitties married. You can swing in. So that's cute. Put my 2 little kitties. Take them out of the cat car and put them in a different car. Get them, take them on a little road trip. This actually isn't terrible, is it? I mean, it's always crew 2, and honestly, you really want to be able to crew 1, but we're crewing 2 with Esika's Chariot all the time. We tap them 2 tokens all the time. So in a way, this kind of feels like if you do go from this into Esika's Chariot, it sort of a little bit feels like giving your Chariot haste and +1/+1. This could actually be really, really slick and better than I think it is. But crew 2 is not as good as it looks a lot of the time. Crew 2 creatures, not even crew 2, it's crew 2 creatures. And that's not going to be as good as you want it to be some of the time. So I'm not too sure about it, but it could also be great. It could also just be very, very good. So what do I know? But let's move on. So this is why you come to the channel, right? Actually, I think you come to the channel for stuff like that. That 2-drop wolf that taps to deal damage equal to the number of wolves. You come to the channel for that plus Maskwood Nexus plus Pylath. That's why you're here. But let's move on to Markov's Retaliation. This thing could be very sweet. This is 3 mana, 2 and a red for a sorcery. Choose one or both. Creatures you control get +1/+0 till end of turn, or target vamp you control deals damage equal to its power to another target creature. Not even a fight effect, it's a bite effect. And you know what? Vampires should get bite effects. Doesn't that make sense? But yeah, it's a bite effect. And that's dope. It's really good. I mean, 3 mana is a lot. It's funny because it's like when red gets a Blizzard Brawl, it's tribe specific and it costs 3 mana. So, but Blizzard Brawl you can't usually do till you have 3 mana anyway. But hell, one of the cool things about Blizzard Brawl is that you double spell with it once you get to turn 3. You can't really do that with this, but still, one of your vamps gets to kill a dude, and all of your vamps gets +1/+0. It's good. That's probably kind of decent. When this removes a blocker and boosts your whole team, and it makes the vampire that you're using to bite something bigger too. So it can more easily take out, 3 and 4 toughness creatures. So, I don't know. I think this might actually be, super playable. Even 3 mana at sorcery speed, this looks pretty good for the Vampires deck. If it just acts like a Blizzard Brawl, then it's a beating most of the time. But that's not the final uncommon of the day. We got one more, but this one's really good. A lot of the uncommons we've looked at today have been, I think, in some way standard playable, but this one, first of all, you don't have to wonder about. Matter of fact, I don't have to wonder about this one at all. Wandering Mind is 3 mana, 1 a blue and a red for a 2/1 horror with flying. And when it ETBs, Jeez. Look at the top 6 cards of your library. You may reveal a non-creature, non-land from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. So, yeah, that's a good Magic card. I mean, it can grab a removal spell, it can grab a counter spell, it can grab a planeswalker, it can grab an artifact, it can grab an enchantment, it can grab just about anything it can grab on Alrund's Epiphany. Whoops. God. That's so silly. And like, I'm not actually sure that Epiphany decks want this. Now, hear me out, because those decks will often play at instant speed. They're holding up Divide by Zero or saw it coming on turn 3. I don't know that they want to tap out. And a lot of the things that they would tap out to play this against can punish them for doing so. Not necessarily with a removal spell or anything, but, you know, you tap out to play this against mono green and they trample over with Pack Leader and, you know, Old Growth Troll. So your 2-1 just does nothing. It's not even a good blocker in that situation. It is okay against mono white, right? It draws an Epiphany or a sweeper, which is another thing this thing can do. And also absorb damage for a turn against that deck. So I think the card does see some play in Epiphany. I'm just not sure how many of this card you actually want, because by and large on turn 3, you don't want to be tapping out in that deck. But you can play this on turn 5 if you don't have your Epiphany yet. You can play this on like turn 5, hold up Negate or a removal spell or something like that. And then either get the Epiphany or a sweeper removal spell that you can then cast because you have the mana left over. So, I don't know. Maybe you play this on turn 5 and you draw your Disdainful Stroke with it and you hold that up, right? So there's so much that this can do that I'm almost certain it goes in the Epiphany decks. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate. That deck really wants to play at instant speed and kind of dirtle, mess with your tempo, and this doesn't do that, but I guess it does mess with your tempo because it's a blocker, and that deck does not have a whole lot of early blockers. But this will turn on other decks, you know, Spikefield Hazards. This will turn on other decks' removal spells that they normally wouldn't have turned on. This will turn on other decks' Blizzard Brawls, and then that gets a boost to one of their dudes and they get through. So I'm just not like 100% sure how good it's actually going to be, but that's good. That just means the more you think about the card, the more fair it gets. I don't think you'll be attacking with this, so I don't really care that it dies to like eye twitches and elite spellbinders. I like to think more that it gets you a card and then trades with those things in combat. You know, blocking an elite spellbinder is actually kind of a big deal. Blocking a Goldspan Dragon for 1 turn and not taking damage, actually kind of a big deal. So like, I like this just as a body that draws you a good card, and it's almost never going to whiff in the decks that want it. So sick card, but it goes in a deck that I don't think needed too many more sick cards. But let's look at Mirror Hall Mimic. Let's cleanse our palettes with maybe the jankiest rare in the set. This is 4 mana, 3 and a blue for a 0/0 spirit. You may have it enter the battlefield as a copy of any creature on the battlefield, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. You can pay 3 and 2 blue to disturb it, and then you get Ghastly Mimicry, which is a neat card. Enchant creature. At the beginning of your upkeep, create a token that's a copy of enchanted creature, except it's a spirit in addition to its other types. If Ghastly Mimicry would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it instead. So this is just really cool, but let's do the cons. I'm sorry. They're there, you know. To get the cool part of this card, the first part of it has to die, or just be in your graveyard. Maybe you mill it into your graveyard or something like that. But then when you disturb it, it costs 5 mana. It costs 5 mana. That's a lot. It's 5 mana to disturb this, and you have to wait an entire turn for it to roll back around to your upkeep. And your opponent can just kill the creature it's enchanted to and blow you out for your 5 mana play. I don't know, man. I really want to like this because it's so cool and janky, and if it stays around for a couple of turns after you get the aura, it's kind of awesome. And the 4 mana side of it isn't nothing. It's a clone. Like, clones are good, right? I like clones. It's literally just clone, and like, that's fine. I'll take a clone, but better reprint. And this is just like kind of a strictly better clone. And it can copy opponents' creatures. Like, there are cool things, especially about the first half of this card. Clones are fine. And it's a clone with upside. But sometimes I wonder if 5 mana get blown the F out is actually an upside. So I don't know. But if the creature with the enchantment on it does stick around for 2 turns, there's some truly heinous stuff you can do with this. So look forward to seeing it on stream. I've said that about a few cards this set. So today has really pumped me up for some like stream garbage, and I can't wait. So let's look at Gloria Sunrise here. This is 5 mana, 3 and 2 green for an enchantment. At the beginning of combat on your turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample till end of turn, or target land gains tap, add 3 green till end of turn, or draw a card if you control a creature with power 3 or greater, or You gain 3 light. You get to choose one of these things every combat step, which means this is going to have some significance the turn it comes into play. And it can pay you back. Like, if you got nothing else you really want to do with this, the turn it enters the battlefield, you can pay the 5 mana for it. And then, during your combat step, give one of your untapped lands, so it does cost 6 mana technically, but give one of your lands the ability to tap for 3, and then this kind of only costs you like 2 mana. You know, so that's kind of good. That's kind of interesting, and it always has significance to turn at ETBs. Creature you control get +1/+1, gain trample till end of turn is actually not the worst overrun effect, especially not to get every single turn. And then if you need the card advantage, you can draw. That's cool, you know, like gaining life is kind of interesting. So I don't know. I think this card is okay. There's a real temptation to call this a 5 mana do nothing, right? But I won't go so far as to call the card glorious or anything, but I do think that it's probably better than it reads at first glance. It does something on the first turn it's in play. It pays you back. On the second turn it's in play, it can give you a buttload of mana, like an absolute load of butts worth of mana on the next turn it's in play. So it actually ramps you a really good bit. If you're not in the mood for ramp, keeps you in the game against aggro, right, or just allows you to alpha. This is good pretty much no matter where you are on the quadrant, you know, behind, ahead, whatever. So I don't know. I think I like this more than I should, because 5 mana enchantments are expensive and they don't really add much to the board state. And this really doesn't add much to the board state at all on any of its modes. But that said, I still can't help but kind of liking this a good bit. And I know that I shouldn't. So let's look at Dreadful Service. And this, I'm confused that we have 2 like undead butler cards in the first, in the same set, but in any case, this is 2 and a black for an enchantment. Whenever you discard 1 or more cards, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. This ability triggers only once each turn. Boo! Boo! Why does it only trigger once each turn? Come on. Let me do broken stuff with this. Wizards, just the fun police so much. You know, you finally give us like a madness thing. It's not really madness, but it's like an upside for discarding cards. I do like this card. I think this is fun. I think it's cool, but 3 mana is a lot. It probably does nothing to turn at ETBs. You know, these are things I have to say as someone that's also judging the cards for like competitive viability. And I don't think this is too competitively viable, but it looks cool. It looks cool. They just had to kill the vibe though. They had to kill the vibe. The trigger's only once each turn. Like, I totally get that you could cast this on turn 3. And then on turn 4, you could cast that 4 mana. It becomes night, discard any number of cards. You could do that, or you could play like the lesson that's 4 mana, discard any number of cards, draw that many. And then just like have a bunch of 2/2s. Let me do that. Is that really so broken when we have a bunch of sweep? There's like a billion sweepers in the format. Is that really so broken? Let us have some fun, Wizards. All right, so let's calm down a little bit and look at Headless Rider. Another black 3-drop, actually. This one's cool. This is 2 and a black for a 3/1 zombie. And whenever it or another non-token zombie you control dies, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. Now, first, I'm getting real sick of this. Whenever it or another blah, blah, blah. Can we just go back to... Like, this card would literally read the exact same if it said, whenever a non-token zombie you control dies. Because it is a zombie. Can we do... Why do we have to... Anyway, that's just a very, very small gripe. Also, awesome and disturbing art on this. I want to throw that out there. Also, I want to throw out that we already had Headless Horse, but it's just a Scathe Zombies. It's literally just Scathe Zombies with awesome Quentin Hoover art. Look at that color palette. I miss you, Quentin Hoover. R.I.P. to one of the greats, man. But as far as the art goes, at least. I don't know anything about him as a person, but I love Quentin Hoover art. But that was just they missed an opportunity on Headless Horseman. It's just a 3 mana 2/2 that does nothing else. This is actually a flavorful Headless Horseman. Although I don't really get the flavor. Are the heads he's chopping off zombies? Is he creating zombies by chopping off people's heads? But then that's when the zombies die. So I don't know. I'm not going to try to guess at the flavor on this. The function's cool though. The zombie's got a couple of really sweet 3-drops. It got the 3-drop zombie that like kind of draws cards, sort of draws zombies when zombies die. So there's a couple of like really desirable 3-drop zombies in the set that'll help that deck out, but they don't really look like they're going to improve the deck much beyond a budget level. And this looks much the same. Although, replacing zombies with more zombies is always something you want to do in your zombie deck. And it doesn't really cost you anything to do this, you know. We saw a couple of cards in the last few sets, Death Priest of Merkel, and something before that in Standard 2021. It was like it was a 3-drop like this. It was like at the end of each, you know, turn, whenever, if a creature died that turn, you can pay mana and get a 2/2. This is a lot like that, except you don't have to wait till end of turn, it happens immediately, and you don't have to pay any mana. And it doesn't trigger just once a turn. That's neat. Actually, it does. Whoops. Sorry. No, it doesn't. It doesn't. Wizards decided not to fun police this one. So this is really good wrath protection, right? So this is a couple of things that zombies deck needed. Removal protection, wrath protection. Make sure you keep your board state, you know, protected. And I keep saying that word. Whenever one of your zombies dies, you grow your champion of the perished. So this is a really, really sweet card. Make no mistake. But hey, let's look at more cool zombies. It looks like we're just going to finish the video with a bunch of black creatures, but like, a lot of the black creatures today were awesome, so let's look at Graf Reaver. This is probably, if not that izzet creature that draws a card when it ETBs, if not that, this is probably the other most standard playable card in the video. This is 2 mana, 1 and a black for a 3/3 zombie warrior with exploit. When it exploits a creature, destroy target planeswalker. At the beginning of your upkeep, it deals 1 damage to you. So that is good. This is totally worth the 1 damage to you per turn. It reminds me of the old like Sui black decks from way back in the day, and we've got a few cards lately that remind me fondly of that deck, because it's a deck that I remember very, very fondly. It's kind of the mono black version of like the mono red Sly decks from back in the day. It was a really fun deck to play, and even though we don't have like Sarcophage or whatever that card was called. Forgive me if I forget these cards that are 25 years ago. but I did have a lot of fun with that deck, and we're getting some inroads back to it, and I like that. We're returning to our roots in mono black aggro. And this is a card that's either going to do a bunch of damage in the early game, or it's going to like block Werewolf Pack Leader and you don't care, right? Like that's kind of good that we've got multiple cards that can stand up to a Pack Leader just today. But yeah, just a really well-statted creature for just 2 mana. It's easy to play in multicolored decks, you know, easy cost here. And the exploit is, remember, a May ability. You don't have to exploit a creature with exploit creatures. It's May. So this can just be a 2 mana 3/3 exploit nothing, but if you do exploit something, you kill their Wrenn and 7 or their Lolth or whatever, and that feels really good too. So just a pretty sexy card here all around that I wish I had more to say about, but it's just so obvious that the card is standard playable in mono black aggro. We've been looking for a good 1-drop for a while, and this is not only a good zombie for the zombie decks, but it's also a warrior, and there is a stunning lack of warriors in mono black. There's only like 2 of them, and one of them is an arena only card. The other one is Slaughter Specialist, and it hasn't proven to be a very good 2 mana 3/3. This, I think, is a I would much rather take damage every turn than to give my opponent a 1/1. As weird as that sounds, it is true. So I think this is just better than Slaughter Specialist in a lot of ways, and you can play them in both decks, but or play both of them in the same deck. But one way or the other, just the warrior subtype will matter a little bit for the decks that want to do some party shenanigans. So I just really like this card a good bit, and I am pretty sure that we can say that if there's a mono black aggro deck in standard, and there actually already is, I don't know if y'all remember, but like 3 weeks ago, there was a mono black deck that went like 5-0 in an SCG satellite, and a lot of people were talking about it. A couple of YouTubers did videos on it, so it's a known, you know, entity in this format, and I think this deck, or this card, just makes that deck way better day one. So love it. But up next, let's look at Blood Vial Purveyor. This looks like a bunch of Magic players I know. This guy, the guy in this art looks like 4 different people that I know. But anyway, this is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black, for a 5/6 vampire with flying and trample. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, that player creates a blood token. Whenever Blood Vial Purveyor attacks, it gets +1/+0 for each blood token defending player controls. Waka waka, that's pretty cute. 4 mana for a 5/6 flample is a really good cost. That's so good, but of course you can get like semi blown out when your opponent just kills this with a removal spell and gets a blood token. Like, you're not getting 2 for 1 on that, but it just doesn't feel good. You know, it turns all of your opponent's removal spells into like mini Fateful Absence. In a way, instead of getting a clue, they get a blood token. So I don't know, man, but I will say that if your opponent doesn't have the removal spell, they still want to cast spells. They still want to do that. So like, it rolls around to your opponent's turn after you cast this. They don't have their removal spell. They cast a spell. Well, golly, now you can fly over for 6 if they double spell that turn. Now you can fly over for 7. So, like, just your opponent casting spells on their turn, the turn after you cast this, makes you able to swing in for more when it's finally able to swing. And it tramples. So, like, I don't know. It's pretty good. But, of course, your opponent can just pop their blood vials, you know, and make this smaller if that's what they want to do. But that's going to cost them mana. Right? So they won't have all the mana to cast spells on their turn. I don't know. There's just an interesting interplay with this. But obviously the upside is a 4 mana 5/6 flample. But our stat's going to be good enough to make this like truly worth playing. I'm not 100% sure. And every blood token that you give to them gets them a little closer to the removal spell if they want to draw cards. But it also does this interesting thing where like they pop a blood token, this gets a little bit smaller, they draw a card, they want to play that card. They play the card, it gets them another blood token. Well, they might not have the mana to pop that one, so this is just going to stay big. Again, a lot of interesting interplay with the opponent here, and I usually don't like cards that give the opponent agency over our board state, over our game state, over what we're doing in any way. And what our opponent does influences this card's stats, often negatively, because it's not too expensive to pop a blood token. So I don't love that about the card, but it will never go below a 4 mana 5/6 flample. So you'll take that even if the opponent's popping all the blood tokens. I think it's an interesting idea for a finisher for the Vampires deck. I think Anya might be a better finisher for the Vampires deck, all things considered, but this will block the gold spends all day. I guess there's that. So I don't know. I like this card, but again, this is one of those that I like more than I should because at the end of the day, it's a pile of stats that helps the opponent, and historically, those have not been great. Let's look at Enrique Domnathi here. This is the last card of the day so far, at least. We'll reload one more time, see if we got any new treats. But Henrika is the last card of the day right now. And this, it kind of feels like a fixed rankle, but is it really fixed? This is 4 mana, 2 and 2 black for a 1/3 vampire with flying. It's legendary. At the beginning of combat on your turn, choose one that hasn't been chosen. Each player sacrifices a creature, or you draw a card and you lose 1 life, or transform Enrique Domnathi into Henrika Infernal Seer. This is a 3/4 vampire. It's legendary with flying, death touch, and lifelink. And you can pay 1 and 2 black to have each creature you control with flying, death touch, and or lifelink get +1/+0 till end of turn. Super neat. It becomes like a super vampire Nighthawk or whatever, you know, a Nighthawk scavenger that also pumps your Nighthawk scavengers and your vampire Nighthawks and stuff. So that's like really cool. This is a really neat card, and even though I really want to compare this to Rankle, it's not. It doesn't haste, you know, all that. It's probably not as good as Rankle. In most situations, probably not, to be honest. But at the same time, this can come down on turn 4. If you needed to, you can immediately transform it on your combat step into this 3/4 lifelinking flying death touch guy and just block the Goldspan Dragon that's sure to come down on the next turn or whatever else, you know. So that's an option you have with it. You can go ahead and like make everybody sacrifice a creature the first turn it's out, and then the next turn it's out, you transform it and get to swinging with it. All your mana is open, so you can pump stuff like it pumps itself when it uses its pump ability too, like. Looks actually fairly sick. Again, though, I don't know if this is the 4-drop finisher that Vampires is looking for. End of the day, I don't know if that deck even plays 4-drops. But again, Anya looks like the reach that deck wants, and it provides value no matter what. This card and the last card don't really do those things. So I'm not sure that it goes in Vamps. I'm really not. But it could be an interesting like mid-range 4-drop in one deck or another, because this does some really interesting things. Pays you off for playing dangerous creatures and all that. Pays you off for curving out up to that point. Just a pretty sick card. If you need the card advantage, it'll draw you a card. If you need to have everyone sack, it'll do that. I like how versatile it is. I like that it does something the turn at ETBs, even though it can't attack the turn at ETBs. So there's a ton that I like about this, but at the end of the day, is it all the way there? I'm not 100% sure, but does it do just enough to line up somewhat well with this format, so long as your opponent's not playing Auron's Epiphany? Yes, you know, against mono green, against mono white, I think it does some really, really cool things. Against, like, Gruul Treasure, I think it does some really interesting things as a 4-drop. Against Epiphany, probably not the best card in the world, let's be honest. But hey, even against Epiphany, it fights gold spans, so I don't know. It's a cool card. Don't know exactly how it lines up with the format, but in a more mid-range oriented format, this could be a very important card. that is it for the day, y'all. Just reloaded my thick spoiler. And I got mythic spoiler. And I got no new cards for today so far, at least. So let me know how you felt about all this mess down there in the comments section. We got some really powerful uncommons today. We got some really janky rares. And we did get some rares that I think are standard playable or have a chance of being standard playable. I almost burped. I'm a professional YouTuber. I held that burp back for you. But anyway, we got some decent rares. And we got especially some cards that I think might look good if there are some changes to the format. You know what I'm talking about. So, we got some really good looking stuff, some jank lord stuff, some fun competitive things, and some really, really powerful uncommons. So let me know how you feel about it down there. We are still only about halfway through this set. As weird as that sounds, we're only about halfway through this set. So let me know how you feel about it so far. I'm kind of digging it. I like this set, but let me know how you feel about not only the cards today, but the set so far down there. Also, subscribe if you haven't done that yet. We're trying to get to 4 million subscribers. We're only at about 123K. So if you bump me up to like 125, I'd feel much better about our journey to 4 million, our march to 4 million. But aside from that, I guess you can do any of this stuff. I will be on Twitch later on this week. I think I'll try to get 2 more streams in this week, maybe one on Friday night, just kind of going over the set. And then Sunday night, I think we'll definitely get on Sunday to do this one way or the other, whether we stream on Friday or not. But Sunday, I think we'll be getting on to do our full set review, which is where I assign a number grade to every single card in the set. Usually takes a while. My voice is shot. At the end of it, it's a fun way to spend some time. So get over to the Twitch streams and follow if you haven't done that yet. Sub if you want to. And of course, you can check out the Patreon. $1 a month is all it takes to vote on content, what decks we do this season for Crimson Vow and all that. And I feel like I'm worth $1 a month. So get over there and help out the channel. Every dollar counts. But aside from that, there's a few cards I need to translate. I got to get this thing out before midnight. So let's go. Let's edit. Love you guys. And I'll catch you cats later. I'm Deb from The Place. Thanks for watching, Wizards. Spread love and be kind.